Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art and Talk. Art and Talk is an online interviewing platform for artists to share their art, their creativity, and their passion. We embrace all the arts, the traditional arts and the spiritual arts, to bring you diverse and quality interviews to watch and to be inspired by. Thank you so much for connecting with us today. Today, we're continuing with Spirit Week, and today is part 2. And we'll be bringing you today one of the co-creators of the Temple of Divinity. So we're diving into the art of spirit, and we'll be finding out what the Temple of Divinity is all about. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Art and Talk, and I'd like to welcome our guest for today, Taras Machula. Taras, welcome.
Thank you very much, Leslie Sue.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, so the Temple of Divinity. Tell us what that's about and a little bit about you, Taras, if you will, so we can get a feel for your background and kind of leading up to co-creating the Temple of Divinity.
Well, thank you very much. So basically, I'm a hypnotherapist located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I'm a member of the National Guild of Hypnotists and also a member of the Manitoba Association of Hypnotherapists. And in terms of my training tended to be a lot of hypnotherapy, but my first, for example, training in hypnotherapy was in past life regression. And this was with a quantum QHHT program, the quantum healing hypnosis technique that was shepherded and shared by Dolores Cannon. And many people who are familiar or reading about different spiritual factors and books would probably know about Dolores Cannon. So that was my first introduction to the spiritual realm, and I started doing sessions in that. However, I wanted more and more information about how she did her sessions, how she interviewed her clients. And I started studying hypnosis and figuring out and reading up about a lot of different authors. For example, Michael Newton. I trained under the Life Between Lives program. And I started looking into more about different journeys that one can undertake. And just in December, me and another colleague, another hypnotherapist, we started doing spiritual journeys going into the spiritual realm. So we followed this one hypnotherapist called Howard Beatty, and he has a book on different spiritual journeys. And we started investigating what is out there in terms of the spiritual realms. A lot of people think that it's, like I grew up Christian, thinking heaven is a place of, you just kind of lie on couches and not do anything and just relax. But you find out that when you go there, there's actually locations you can go visit. In my Life Between Lives experience, I had an experience of going to the Akashic Records. I experienced also going to a council of elders. And these are experiences that really impacted me in my life. So in doing Howard Beatty's spiritual journeys, we came across this place called the Temple of Healing. And he explained it as a place with 2 or 3 rooms. So it had a meditation room, it had a hall of records, and it had a healing room where you could actually do healing. And so when we went up there, our room wasn't the same. It had a lot more rooms. And so then I got another energy worker, another channeler, and another channeler. So there were a group of us, 4 of us, and we started channeling this room. And we found out that it has a lot more rooms than 3 rooms. Now this place in the spiritual realms has over 34 halls or rooms that we have co-created and discovered. Why I call myself a co-creator is because we did this with the 3 other individuals, plus spirit, plus we do it with the practitioners and the clients that are going up there. I have a current client who's dealing with terminal 3 cancer, and she and I together and spirit, we co-created 4 other halls of healing in this place. So what does this mean? Like co-creating halls, what does this mean? Temple of Divinity. Temple of Divinity is a place in the spiritual realms that we all can visit. The only ticket or rule is that you need an open heart and you need humility and maybe a little bit of kind of childlike innocence to go up there to experience it and to visit it. It's protected by three archangels. It's Archangel Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel. So it's a place that once you are inside, you do not have to test any of the spirits that are in there, that are working, any of the guides. They're all angels. In the past, years ago, I used to read books about angels and read up on angels. I never really understood, do angels exist or not? And then you suddenly start working in the spiritual realms and you're dealing with them almost on a daily basis, consistently with the clients. And it's amazing the feeling that we get when we're working in those realms. Now, the key for your listeners to understand, especially when it comes to art and music and so forth, is a lot of this art is divinely channeled. For example, musicians, a lot of them, they receive these messages, these melodies, they come to them in the morning. For example, Neil Young, Bono, they would have recordings that they would immediately start to sing to them in the morning. And they would have this message. So what I call it is, I call it divinely channeled, or I call it, for example, spiritually channeled. And what happens when it comes to the hypnotherapy understanding what's happening is that all of us go through these two stages of kind of consciousness. We call it, we go through, our mind goes to what's called the theta state. So currently when we're in a conversation, for example, we're having this video conversation, our minds are kind of on this beta frequency. And then when we go to a little deeper hypnosis, we go into an alpha state where we calm our minds. And then we go into theta state, where our minds are really calm. And this is called the subconscious. And in the subconscious is where practically 95%, this is what psychologists are proving, 95% of our mind is in the subconscious mind. We also have the unconscious and the conscious mind, and they make up maybe 5 to 10% of our mind. In that part of the mind, that's where we get the intuition. That is where we get the insight in how to create something if we're an artist. And that's also where the greatest healing happens when it comes to healing from trauma, healing from obesity, addictions, healing from relationship issues. And that's how I am now working with respect to clients. In the past, as a hypnotherapist, hypnosis and hypnotherapy is really powerful when you're working with addictions and all sorts of issues. For example, people who have issues around fibromyalgia, MS, Parkinson's. There's so many applications, migraines, where hypnosis can come in and can assist. However, what I'm doing now, which is so different, is that I'm permitting the divine to come in to connect, to assist, and to provide guidance and healing. And I sit back now more as a witness, and I examine what they're doing. And my mind is always blown. I am amazed how gently they treat clients. People who come in with traumas that they've been dealing with, and phobias they've been dealing with all their life, or 12 years or longer, are able to receive release, and they're able to heal from them immediately. People who are like PTSD, major trauma, there's so many different therapies one can do through that, and they go through stages of disassociation and everything. In the spiritual realms, it's so much easier, especially when they're supported by the divine. So one of the big reasons that I'm engaged in this Temple of Divinity is that the divine wants to reconnect people. In the past, we have used, for example, preachers, rabbis, clergy, and so forth. And we use different techniques in order to pass along information. For example, the Bible, Quran, these different tools. However, they have been so misinterpreted. You read the Bible, one preacher says one thing, another preacher says another thing. We have the pedophilia of the Catholic Church that is happening around the world. And people are going, does this mean that all divine connection is not true? The divine wants to step in and say that we are spiritual beings, we can connect directly. And the question is your spiritual Wi-Fi on? And so what I try to do with my clients is that I try to turn that spiritual Wi-Fi on. I teach them to connect to the divine themselves. So if you're an artist, for example, the benefit for you connecting to the divine is that you can connect with your spiritual team, with your group, and you can get that you can get that insight. You can get the kind of the intuition to start. A lot of times when you're sitting in front of music, when you're sitting in front of maybe a painting and you're going, where do I start? How do I, what do I need to paint? You don't even know where to work from. Now what you can do by connecting to and doing it actively, because in the past, for example, you know, the intuition and the insight could happen from, some people were using psychedelics, from mushrooms, maybe you had a drink, maybe you went for a walk. So you're doing different things in order to connect. But now you can actively connect by connecting to your guides, your guardian angels, your group, your soul family, in order to figure out, what do I want to do? What do I want to produce? And you can actually produce with their assistance. For example, I think I mentioned a painter that I referred to you, and you'll have a wonderful interview with her. But she was shown that she's supposed to, for example, write light codes on her canvas paintings, that the fairies were going to just hold her stylus or her paintbrush, and they were going to direct exactly how she wanted it to be painted. And then they said that the customers would be able to find her art based upon a calling. So they would find her and look for the art that would be bought from them, and then it would permit like the whole room, the whole house, to receive this good feeling of vibration, and it would just enlighten the whole home. And I'm just getting shivers saying that. So I guess that means that it's a true message that is coming through. So my goal, the reason why this was kind of created, I look at this great legacy of me wanting to leave a legacy for the earth, me wanting to leave a legacy for the future. And it starts off with, what do I want to do? Well, we have to start off by healing our individual hearts. So many people are walking around with personal trauma, societal trauma, trauma from, you know, environment. And we have to heal our hearts. And that is what the goal of the Temple of Divinity is. It's to take you on these spiritual journeys so you can heal your heart. Next, what we need to do is we have to heal society. And the way to do that is by, when we are healed, to start to teach others to connect to their spiritual Wi-Fi so that we can heal as a society. And then lastly, it's to heal the earth. We have to realize that we're all interconnected. What happens in China, for example, with the climate, with the factories producing all this sulfuric, you know, air, and it will affect us breathing here in North America. What happens to the cutting of the Amazon forests and turning them into agriculture and cattle is going to affect us here again in North America, because we won't be able to breathe. So we are all interconnected, but we don't have that awareness. People are working for their own issues themselves, but we need to create that. And the only way we can create that is by starting to look within and starting that creation from ourselves, healing ourselves, learning how to connect to the divine, receiving that connection from the divine, being comfortable to connect on a daily basis in meditation or in hypnosis, which is just a guided meditation. Hypnosis is meditation, but you're going someplace. And it started from me trying to do like 30 days of meditation and being totally bored, trying to have no thoughts in my head. And then I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be more interesting if I went someplace? So now when I go to the spiritual realm, I'm busy. I'm going to different places, experiencing different places, having new insights about issues I have in my life for now, about growing the Temple of Divinity. Where do I get insight? how will they help me grow this movement so that this movement can basically expand on Earth? What they've shared with me is that within 20 years, the whole world will know about the Temple of Divinity. And they mentioned that it's going to grow phenomenally in terms of practitioners. And the way that we work, or the way that I work, is I train practitioners to be able to heal other people's hearts. So if someone is interested in learning how they can be more of a light worker, an active person who is helping the world, helping themselves, I can help you, teach you how to take people to the Temple of Divinity. And in the Temple of Divinity, we have angels that basically guide each individual client on their own personal journey. And that way, I remove my ego and my understanding of what the problems are in order to permit divine intervention to come in and to guide the client. For example, education-wise, I'm well educated. I have a master's degree, and then I was doing many years of this hypnosis training and hypnotherapy training. However, I found that even though I have all these different modalities and techniques, and I can sit there for several hours and do interviews on behalf of the clients, and their client histories, I am absolutely amazed how they take someone and they heal them from where they need to go, and how they do it so gently. So for example, I had a cancer patient, and I thought they would take her, and she had a very ardent, strong cancer. She was concerned about, it was a bone cancer. And I was concerned as to, I thought they would take her to a healing area to heal the cancer. No, immediately they took her into the womb. And it was an issue that she had with her mother. Her mother had some fear because her father was in an accident, and that affected her when she was in the womb. And that needed to be the first thing that she needed to be healed with. Before that, before we could do any other physical healings on her body. But talk about a change. She came to my office kind of with a cane. She was a little concerned about how her whole process was going, her chemotherapy was going, but it's kind of like removing the fear, providing her the opportunity to connect to herself, and giving her the skills to assist her through her healing journey. So the Temple of Divinity is not just a place in the spiritual realm for us to experience and say, oh, well, this is wonderful. This is a wonderful experience. It's also for us to apply to our everyday living situations. They want to help you. They want to be of service. But the only way that we can be connected to them is when we drop our frequency and get into that theta state, get into that meditative state so that they can communicate. Because when we're in meditation and when we're doing hypnosis, we're able to listen. When you're involved in prayer, you are basically you're asking for healing, you're asking for healing for others, you're basically talking. And it's like a relationship. For example, if you have a partner or children, if all you did is talk to them and never listen to their concerns, what kind of relationship is that? And in meditation, we have now the opportunity to listen to the divine. We're able to hear their input. And their input might be just a few words, but the words are so deep and they go right to the point. And they're able to kind of explain and give a new light to things that we never even considered. And so what it does is it sets us up on a healing journey. And also they're willing to come in and to remove things like phobias, like traumas. I had a client who was dealing with this phobia for over 12 years. He's been to so many psychologists. He was referred by a professor of psychology, referred him to me. He said, listen, I've tried working with this guy for 12 years. I can't remove his phobia. Could you help me? So we went to a past life where I believe this phobia was going to be, it was so traumatic, he couldn't even go through that past life. And then he had a temple angel that he was working with, and her name was Allison. And I said, well, why don't we ask her just to remove the phobia? And she goes, he asked her, and she goes, oh, that little thing. She put her hands into his chest. She grabbed this black mass. She sent it to the light. And then afterwards, I'm interviewing the client, and I'm saying, how do you remember the phobia? Yes, I do. Do you have any feelings? Do you have any nightmares? No, it's all gone. And then subsequently, I interview him after a week and a month. It's still gone. So the phobia is gone. And he was amazed how quickly that happened. So the Temple of Divinity is not just, for example, for you just to have kind of like a carnival experience or something like this. It's somewhere also for us to connect, because we are 95% spirit living in a physical body, and now we are able to connect on a daily basis. So is that a good enough explanation?
Yes, absolutely. All right. A couple things I want to make sure that we have solidified in our knowing of the Temple of Divinity. So essentially, Taras, you are an intermediary or an escort with the client, but yet you participate in the whole healing process.
Okay, now that's actually a really good question. They have asked, that the divine has said that, yes, people can go and experience the Temple of Divinity on their own. And what I do is I teach people, first of all, I teach them self-hypnosis, then I teach you how to go to the spiritual realm on your own, and then you can go visit the Temple of Divinity. However, in the beginning, generally what I'm doing is I'm training you to, I might, for example, give you that whole experience at once before we break it down into the trainings. And in the beginning, typically when you're working with a hypnotherapist, generally most hypnotherapists, they sit with you, they sit beside you, and they kind of guide you into a session. There's a lot of suggestibility. If you happen to go into a past life, you might be talking during the session, and you're explaining what's happening, because you're seeing those things in your mind's eye. So you got your eyes closed, but the theta state is almost like the dream state. So your eyes are moving, and what I'm noticing as the hypnotherapist is that I'm looking at your eyes and you're breathing. I see that shallow, deep breathing. I see your eyes moving. You're actually you're not asleep. You're having an experience yourself. You're seeing these visions, and people who are in the spiritual kind of field, they say you're having the visions through your third eye. So it's like when you close your eyes and you imagine, for example, a blue car. We can all close our eyes, imagine a blue car. That's exactly the feeling that you're having in terms of seeing different things. So I work in training you to be able to see it. Now, what they explained is that in the beginning, we need guides. And as a hypnotherapist, I'm kind of like a guide for you. I guide you up, you can have your experience, and then I bring you down. After you've had one or two experiences, then because I myself travel to the spiritual realm, we go together. And then when we travel together, I see you in your spiritual kind of your higher self, your spirit form, and you see me in my spirit form. So I've had situations where we have traveled as a group. There have been like up to 19 people altogether, and I could see them all in their spirit forms traveling. It's kind of like a tour bus, but in the spirit world, and they can see me, which is really fascinating. Now, my role when we're going to the Temple of Divinity is not to lead you, because I'm leading you from my conscious mind. I don't know what is the best place to take you. And that's why we ask for a divine angel, a guide, to come in and to guide you. And I know where you're going because I've taken people so many times, and there's different halls, and then we investigate the halls, and we understand where you're going. And because I've taken you to those halls, for example, there's more information that can come forward. For example, we have a hall called the Hall of Remembrance. And this particular hall, to me, it came across as a church, but to each individual person, it comes across a little differently. In the Hall of Remembrance, this is a beautiful place for you to visit with your loved ones that have passed on. So if you've suffered a loss that you never made amends with, someone may have died from suicide, someone that you thought, well, I didn't want, you were fighting in this lifetime, but you wanted to say, I'm sorry or something, we can actually visit that person. And Father's Day is coming up right now. So if you ever wanted to visit, my dad passed away. And if you ever wanted to visit with your loved one, you can actually go to that Hall of Remembrance. And it's a place where a lot of tears are shed, but they can express to you what, kind of, they can talk back to you and explain things to you, that things that may have never been said on the earth plane. So that's an example of a particular hall that we have. We also have a hall of angels there. And this is kind of like, we have source light, and it's kind of like a big sauna room. And the water is holy water, and people love to jump into it. And when we were doing sessions, people would feel vibrations. So no matter where you're located, you're having a session and you're feeling this vibration going through your body. You know that this is a little different. You're not just meditating. Something is happening to you. And the way the vibrations come across are generally very light, depending upon how much healing you're required, and they're done in love. You never have the sense that you're in a place of worry or anything like that. And they teach you and they work with you. Now, my role while you're going through the healing process is as a guide or a witness. So I try not to tell you what to do. I'm more there to identify things. Like, for example, if you go into the Hall of Angels, you might not be aware that there are forgiveness fonts there. And these are kind of like huge fonts where you can drink forgiveness water. And that permits you to kind of start to change, internalize it, and go through this program and this kind of understanding of forgiveness. So again, as a practitioner, my role is more of the witness and the guide. And so by knowing the different locations, we're able to give you a much more kind of a larger experience. Also, all the halls have their own specific guide. And each hall has a guide that can come to you as a different angel, depending upon your sense of humor. So for me, for example, I love Seinfeld humor. I like, Marx Brothers. They love that kind of humor. They're showing up as Marx Brothers characters. They're showing up with this kind of smart ass comments and stuff like that. And they like humor. Angels love to laugh. And the humor is never derogatory. It's always done in a lot of light, a lot of fun. It's not there to make it difficult. For example, I had a client who is going through trauma, and she's doing EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization receptivity therapy for trauma. So the way they were working with psychologists is they required 3 sessions for each trauma. And she had 12 trauma moments, so that means she needed 36 sessions. And we're doing work in the Temple of Divinity, and they explained that she only needs 3 sessions. And they were just so gentle in guiding her in terms of understanding her trauma, understanding that she's bigger than her trauma, giving her those skills and everything to work through her trauma journey. Just absolutely fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're actually, Taras, in the as the practitioner with your client, as you were expressing, you're kind of monitoring the client, because you said you were watching their eyes, you're breathing, but you're also have the visual awareness of the spiritual realm and what's going on with your client, but yet you kind of step back and you let a guide, an angel, take them to the appropriate place, and you are in the state of being a witness to what is going on for the healing.
Definitely, yes, a witness. And in the beginning, it depends on kind of the comfort level. If the person's really familiar and I've taught them how to go up themselves, then I go together with them. And then I spend much less time monitoring them physically while I'm monitoring them spiritually. But in the beginning, for example, I'd be monitoring more of them physically if I'm not in the spiritual realm with them. And it's fascinating as a therapy because now I get to see them on a spiritual level. And this is therapy that is, you probably never even heard of this type of therapy, where you can actually go to the spiritual realm with your client and experience these things where they can see you, which is absolutely fascinating.
Mhm. Tell us, Taras, some of the things that you experienced here. I mean, you shared a lot of them, but share some of the things in like a visual terms and in terms of some more like physiological responses, just so we can get a little bit more of a taste of the spiritual realm and all these different halls that you've been explaining. And the
Mhm.
whole premise is basically centered around healing of the individual and then healing in terms of being able to teach that to others, and then also for the world. So it has a very purposeful, almost like methodology
Mhm.
to kind of move through these different stages.
Mhm. Okay, so I personally had an experience where I was when we were co-creating it, Archangel Raphael came through me, and he said we started talking, and he goes, I'd like to do a healing on you, and he started working on me, and so I couldn't believe how much energy was put through my body, and I was lying here on my couch while we're doing this, and the energy was just unbelievable. It was like I had to really breathe deeply to permit all that energy to flow through me. And another co-creator had that experience. So it's kind of like some people call it like a Kundalini awakening and things like that. And all this energy just like started coming through, and I could feel the different chakras where it's expanding the chakras and growing the chakras and all the way through my body. Um, so if you're not familiar with chakras or chakra energy, it's interesting to experience how they work through you. It's never painful. They never push you more than you can take. So they know exactly your limits. I've never had a person in therapy or going through this experience say ouch or anything like that. What they felt is they felt movement, they felt like a wave through them, they felt energy going through them. Some of them had to breathe right through it, depending upon what they required. When we went into this sound, healing of sound vibration, they felt the sounds and the frequencies that they need to heal at. Another room for healing crystals. They stood under a crystal. They could feel the crystals aligning their cells. And then we went into a hall of flames. Now, this is a flame of healing through the violet flame and also the different colors of the flames. And so we were talking about different spiritual gifts and so forth. And what I received is this ability to work with spirit and permit people's spiritual gifts to happen and to turn on. So now when I'm doing my my practitioner course, during the practitioner course, we ask for an activation angel to come in and to activate the spiritual gifts of my students so that they can have all these other gifts. Sometimes you're given a pen, sometimes you're given like an orb, a crystal, a chain, and all of these gifts have different significance for that particular person. So some people need to see more in their third eye, and it's just fascinating with respect to that. Another thing that I've had the privilege of working on is the Sri Chakra. And this is something that's probably it requires another session totally. And this is an inactive chakra that we all have. It's called the Sri Chakra or the Sri Yantra. And I've been able to activate it with spirit for my practitioners. This is a manifestation chakra. It is a frequency modulator to bring in greater messaging through your body so that you can communicate better with the divine and to have a much more purposeful kind of life. It's a great manifester, which during this co-creation, it was charged up, this particular chakra. When you look at it, it's a number of triangles, 9 triangles, and they start spinning. And in my experience, it was located between my legs, like between my knees. When we activate it, it starts spinning. And then in a Kundalini awakening, I was able to kind of like bring it up to past my soul star. And while I'm working with my practitioners, we were able to activate their Sri chakras. So they also have this manifestation chakra. Now, this chakra, when it's said, is when it manifests, it buzzes it on this Om thing. And it's there again to solidify that relationship with spirit. And I can talk to you a little bit more about that, but I know we're limited in time. I think I've been talking for over 40 minutes, but happy to share because you mentioned about the different spiritual gifts. And so I'm also a Reiki master. So I have my Reiki master qualifications in Holy Fire, but I also teach people how to heal with the violet flame and with other spiritual gifts that they may have received.
Mhm. Yeah, I love everything that you're sharing. And this is such a vast topic, and going into the spiritual realm, and the healing, and then the connectivity with the divine that is taking place. What I would like to ask you, Taras, is with your experience with the practitioners, your clients, and in your own individual experiences, like how you were just sharing with Archangel Raphael and other ones that you've experienced, how has your daily life changed? Well, what changes have you seen? And just in your daily walk, and in your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your perceptions, what has taken place that you can feel an elevation or a difference that you could share with us?
Mm-hmm. I used to suffer with depression a little bit, and I approached my doctor and asked about taking antidepressant pills and so forth. And he said, well, why don't you start walking? And I started doing like 30-minute walking, and that was fine. And then COVID hit. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a depressive times. And how do we get through COVID? By having a daily kind of meditation schedule and going to the spiritual realm on a daily basis, when you get to the spiritual realm, you feel this unbelievable sense of unconditional love and non-judgment. And it's almost like a place that you need to feel when you're feeling down on yourself, when you're feeling a little, we're sometimes the hardest critics. And you're able to bring back a little bit of this unconditional love into yourself from that feeling. So what it's done is it's expanded my awareness that I'm not alone, because now we're connected and they love you so much. It's ridiculous how much they love you. And they say that, and you will witness that by other people expressing that even in the sessions. So I'm in a session with my client, and a message might come through from the client to me that they're sharing that I need to hear. And I'm like blown away by that as to how they witness us. So I'd like to share that this is not something that is just a once and done type of thing. This is you changing your behavior from thinking that you're alone, thinking that your depression or anxiety is just something you're dealing with on a singular basis, on a lone basis, and then finding, no, you're not. You're actually connected with all of us. But in order to do that, you just have to get back into that feeling of connectivity, learning the techniques, and knowing that you're connected. The example I like to say is, what would a cell phone be like without a cell plan, or without Wi-Fi? And it's like, it's all of us. We're walking around with no connection. So by connecting, what it's done is it's expanded my heart to understand that, I can love more, and that it's given me a lot more comfort.
Yes. Someone who might be watching this, who after listening to your beautiful elaborations and experiences and whatnot, Taras, that wants to connect to the spiritual realm, which is, as you were saying, is available to everyone. What are some practical ways that you would recommend that someone would be able to access this realm?
Okay. Good. You can start off by listening to some YouTube videos. Sometimes there's some really good YouTube videos that you can listen to. They're not guided by an individual person, but start off with learning a little bit about meditation. Start to meditate more. learn to meditate. It doesn't have to be sitting up. You can do it prior to when you go to sleep. That is a wonderful way to fall asleep, is by meditating and then falling asleep. That's how I did it in the beginning a lot of times, and you'd be surprised how quickly, like if you were struggling with sleeplessness, you can start meditating, listening to one of these YouTube meditations, and then zonk, you're gone. And in some of those experiences, I've had experiences where it was an angel meditation, and I got to feel what an angel felt like, which is great. So that's a good place to start. Obviously, you can always take a course from a meditator. You can obviously reach out to me if you'd like to have specific kind of spiritual connections. So in terms of going and accessing the spiritual realm, there are a number of ways that you can do that. Another way, apart from meditation or hypnosis, is shamanism or shamanism. You can use that. But in all of these techniques that you can go up, you have to do a number of things. Number one is you have to separate the ego from your higher self and realize that both are separate. You need to tie yourself into kind of the earth's frequency, and then you need to ask for protection, because the spiritual realm it does have angels, but it also has all sorts of spirits kind of flying around, just kind of like your Ouija board. And you got to know, who are you connecting with? What is the highest and greatest good, and doing it for the highest and greatest good, because it's like it's all available to you. So my suggestion is start off by learning how to meditate, because and take in a hypnotherapy session if you have someone local. The hypnosis is kind of, I like to say, it's like an 8-lane highway. It's like the freeway to the spiritual realm. It's just so quick. People in the past, people used tarot cards or oracle cards or pendulums or different kind of drumming and stuff like that they would kind of get into this subconscious state. But with hypnosis, you're able to go to it like so fast and so quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I wanted to, before we wrap things up, Taras, I wanted to just go back to a point that you had mentioned before. So again, just to reiterate, we're focusing on healing whatever traumas or issues might be going on the individual level. And of course, that connectivity back to the divine, having that stabilized and always there, always present, and awakening to that state. But then you also mentioned that certain spirit gifts, while in the spiritual realm, while receiving the healing, can also take place. And then once that's, you finish the session, or if there's a continuation of a session, then that aspect of divinity that you learned comes through in your earth experience. And it almost seems like, and tell me if this is correct to you, that literally, like, the human form or the human vessel is almost like set up in a sense to just let the divine come through. It doesn't have to be an artist. We gave that example, which I think is a beautiful example, but it could be any type of field. It doesn't matter what it is, that aspect of divinity wants to come out and be expressed. So I thought that was really quite beautiful, and it kind of is a huge mind change, transformation in terms of the perspective of the way that the human body is looked at and our role is looked at. Are you in agreement with that?
So I'll give you an example. In the beginning, when I started working in the spiritual realm, I had this disconnection with my own kind of soul. And I would tell clients, well, feel like you got your hands up and you're pulling your soul back into your body, right? To feel that connection. And people would just feel it up there, and then they start pulling it in to get kind of the feeling of it, that unconditional love, because your higher self is unconditional love, non-judgment. And then you have your ego. That's jealousy, that's envy, that's anger, that's all your own personal shit that you're trying to deal with. And you have to separate the two. Now, what I found is that by working on an awareness of the two, now you can start to understand it better. Now you can start to communicate with it better. In the past, that little kind of mind, that little intuition was always in the back of your mind, right? Like if somebody was trying to sell you a bad car or something, you're going, no, that's doesn't sound right, right? And your little intuition saying, I don't think I should buy it. And I would say to people, you should like use a intuition with a big megaphone, and then you're finally listening to it. But what it means is you got to quiet yourself to listen to your intuition. And your intuition could be your higher self, and it also is your guardian angel, because your guardian angel talks with the same voice as you do, until you recognize the characteristics of your guardian angel, and then they can start coming through, and you understand it's another entity that's coming through with the wisdom. So by working with it, you can start pulling it down, and then it became kind of around my crown. And then just lately, I've been able to pull it down so it feels like it's just like another skin on my body. And now I'm more apt to connect to it. So now when I'm talking, when I'm passing along messages, when I'm connecting with it, the words come out quicker, the understanding comes out quicker, the wisdom comes out quicker, and we're able to connect. So to give you an example, sometimes the best places to connect is in nature, where you can feel that kind of quietness, and just kind of listen to it. I found that I tried looking for the divine in certain churches, and I went to some of these churches that played like really heavy rock music and the whole bit. Great show, but I couldn't connect because I was being blown away by, you can't listen. In order to listen to your inner voice, you really got to quiet the mind. So ways to do that is by, for example, when you're driving, and then suddenly you notice like so many kilometers or miles just went by, and you didn't even notice them. Your mind's totally quiet, and then you can start focusing on that really, really quiet voice, and develop that connection. And from that quiet voice, that's where you get the artistic understanding of which way you should go with your art. And you can develop it into actual channelings, whereby you can actually channel poetry or channel a story. And I've been able to work on a number of short stories where after the session, all this information came through as to the story, and I just started writing. And it was like somebody else was dictating a whole story for me. And it's called automatic writing or channeling. And that's another technique that I'm happy to share and work with people in the artistic community on how that works.
Yes. What a beautiful place, the spiritual realm with the Temple of Divinity. Thank you for what you shared and your elaboration. Taras, we do need to wrap up the show. We would like for you to provide any closing comments that you'd like to share, and let us know how we can stay connected with you. Let us know how someone can sign up for a session with you. Maybe they want to become a practitioner.
Sure, thank you. Well, obviously I have my email here. If you see the email it's tmachula66@gmail.com. Feel free to email me so that we can connect. On Facebook, we have a group site for the Temple of Divinity. It's called For Heart Healing. So it's Temple of Divinity for Heart Healing. Add yourself to the page. You'll become a member. You'll read more about the different halls that we're discovering and the different experiences we have. Lastly, I have my own website. It's www.winnipeghypnosis.com. So it's just from, I guess, Winnipeg with 2 N's, winnipeghypnosis.com. You can reach out to that. So different ways you can reach out. More than happy to answer any questions you might have. Realize also that your spiritual journey or spiritual awakening is not just a destination. It's basically like a circle. You realize more, and you go more and more in depth, and you're just amazed by more information that's come through. But we all have that connection. I'd like to finish off by saying that we all have that connection. And the divine wants to connect. It's just a matter of us opening our ears, opening our hearts, because that's probably where we communicate as best possible to that connection, and listening. So thank you for this opportunity to share this podcast and this message about what I do.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being our guest, Taras, and sharing about the Temple of Divinity and some of your experiences and what you've experienced and what some of your clients have experienced. And also, just sharing, from the heart about this. And I wanted to also thank you for the healing services that you provide and for the spiritual services that you provide as well, as we all are healing and awakening together.
Yes. One last thing I'd like to share is that this is not bent on any kind of particular religious viewpoint. So whatever religious background you have, it doesn't matter, because the only two factors in the spiritual realm is unconditional love and non-judgment. So if you're Christian, you're permitted to go to the spiritual realm. If you're Muslim, it doesn't matter. You're not limited by your religious understanding. All you need to have is an open heart and a childlike curiosity, and happy to help you.
It's a great way to close out the show. Taras, thank you so much for being our guest today on Art and Talk.
Yes, thank you very much, Leslie.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching today. Again, this was part 2 of Spirit Week, where we're diving into the art of spirit. So stay connected with us for part 3, which we'll be bringing to you at the end of this week. Thank you again, Taras, for being our guest today. Thank you again, everyone, for connecting in with us, and we'll talk soon on the next Art and Talk. Until then, be well and be blessed.